New World Order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation.
As far as the US homeland is concerned, this is how former Assistant Secretary to the Treasury Paul Craig Roberts sees the New World Order. He writes, and I quote, "Obama is attacking the only income class that has any independence, the upper middle class professionals." And it gets much worse. What the Obama administration is really doing is taxing ordinary people in order to bail out the super rich. The 95% of Americans who get the tax cut will find that it's offset many times by the depreciation in the dollar and the raging inflation that will result from monetizing the multi-trillion-dollar budget deficits made necessary by the bailouts of the banksters. In other words, what Craig is saying is that class struggle is alive and kicking in the US. The ruling class, they've got everything. Most Americans in what Gore Vidal calls the United States of amnesia. They may have forgotten that the Democratic Party, they used to be supported by the unions. So the unions had progressive policies. Globalization destroyed unions. For the Democrats, what matters now is Wall Street. And to top it all, Obama is not likely to push for legislation that makes it easier to organize unions in the US. So is this the way a new world order shapes up? The great Immanuel Wallerstein, in one of his recent commentaries for the Fernand Braudel Institute, he has stressed how the reports from the European think tank GEAB we mentioned in part 1 of this report, they have pointed out this is the last chance for audacity. The London consensus reached at the G20 is not audacity, not to mention the stimulus and bailout plans which are popularly perceived to be about saving them, the banksters. The possibility of no less than civil war in the United States and in Europe is very, very real. Wallerstein stresses, and I quote, "These analyses are not coming from left intellectuals or radical social movements. They are the openly expressed fears of serious analysts who are part of the existing establishment in the United States and Europe." And what about this fearful establishment insider?
We've been talking about the disappearance of the middle class, something you've been concerned about, but you also talk about the possibility of class conflict.
The G20 in London was just a preview, with street protesters corralled and treated as terrorists.
We are here! We will fight!
While the world elites barricade themselves in ultra-secure gated communities. Last January, this bill, the H.R. 645, was introduced in the US Congress. It calls for 6 sprawling national emergency centers located on military bases. Their purpose, I quote, is temporary housing, medical and humanitarian assistance to individuals and families dislocated due to an emergency or major disaster. But they can also be used to, I quote, meet other appropriate needs as determined by the Secretary of Homeland Security. In fact, these are FEMA gulags. Corporate media, of course, has totally ignored H.R. 645. This is another glimpse of the New World Order inside the US. And not many people may remember this.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
And where does that leave the US moral authority?
Our moral authority is derived from the fact that generations of our citizens have fought and bled to uphold these values in our nations and others. And that's why we can never sacrifice them for expedience sake.
10 years ago, NATO already had studies about operation in urban areas with high collateral damage. It's all here in this report. Published, irony of history, 6 years ago, when George Bush thought he had won the war in Iraq. This report tacitly advises the gradual use of the army for crowd control in urban centers, ahead of a global crisis they thought then would start around 2020. Well, 2020 is now. Proto-fascists, from loudmouth right-wing Christians to the sexy Sarah Barracuda Palins of the world, they will have no trouble finding disciples. And any pretext is good enough for further militarization of territory and of consciousness. The Pentagon's long war will go on and on. New World Order, more like newspeak. There will be depression, there will be anger, there will be blood.
There are times when reality just asserts itself, in spite of the haze created by television news and entertainment. Sometimes crisis rips a tear in the fabric of myth and propaganda. Now a profound economic crisis has ripped asunder the American dream itself. Millions of people losing jobs and homes. They lack proper health care and any real sense of security. Since 2001, workers' wages have fallen or remained stagnant, even though worker productivity has risen almost 33%. By 2006, the top 1% of households were receiving 23% of all pre-tax income, more than double what it was in the 1970s. It's the greatest concentration of income since 1928. As unemployment rises, we need to know why this crisis is happening and what we can do to defend ourselves. Why are wages so low? Why is the society so laden with debt? Is it in ordinary Americans' interest to have $1 trillion military budget to project power across the globe? Corporate television news won't ask these questions, let alone try to find answers. Only a truly independent news network can tackle these questions with courage and with ordinary people's interests in mind. We need a news network that's independent of corporations, governments, and political parties. We need the real news. But there won't be a real news network unless we raise substantial funds right away. The current financial crisis has hit our funding hard. Together, we do have the power to turn it around. There are already hundreds of thousands of people watching the real news every month. If everyone pitches in, we can build an internet and cable television network that will change the face of media forever. You can organize house parties, talk to friends at school and at work, send email blasts and spread the word. Distribute this video to everyone you know. Pick up the phone and call a few friends and suggest they visit therealnews.com. Invest just 10 minutes a day to ask friends and colleagues to join the campaign to create a truly independent source of internet and television news. Together, we can build this network. Just 50,000 people at $10 a month gets us to our first level of sustainability. You can help us reach this goal, and when we do, we'll move to television in millions of homes across North America. Help us reach an audience in the millions. Please contribute generously. Spread the word. Let's make the Real News television network a reality.
Your tax-deductible donation makes it possible. Please contribute at therealnews.com.